Hey, that's me. I'm Nick, and this is the Epoxy River Island Tables series, episode 2. On episode 1, we built the water drop case. This week, I will be forming the Sunburst drop, top and bottom.
It's been a little minute, but we're back.
In order to make the Sunburst pattern, I'll start by forming some segments out of this ultra heavyweight unbleached paper using a hydroelectric power rotary veneer saw. That's 8/4 material on the ant scale, to those of you in the know. And each of the segments are going to be cut at 22.5 degrees, which fits perfectly with the acute detail that was prompted to me at the beginning of this commission. I'll be gluing that to a plywood of my own making, which consists of an ultra-stable MDF core laminated on either side with Baltic birch plywood. And if suddenly you're asking yourself, what the hell is he talking about? Don't worry, that's why there's a video, you silly goose. I'm going to show you. Almost every Sunburst, hot starburst, that's a candy, Sunburst pattern you see is centered, so I don't know what it is about putting it just a couple inches to one side. I thought it made it a lot more interesting. It also made it a little more challenging because nothing is the same on either side. Normally you can cut out a bunch of the same pieces and then just iterate that around a circle. In this case, they were different lengths. They had to be at different angles and due to the width of the material. I had a couple places where there was sapwood in places that I didn't like and gaps in the pattern that I had to fill. It's a painstaking process, but honestly, every extra moment spent here in this step is rewarded tenfold in the resulting products. Once finished with the fitment process, I can flip these over and use a special kind of shrinking tape to really pull those seams together tight to make sure there's no gaps. In order to make sure that the tape is making good contact everywhere, I use a hard rubber roller, and while the tape dries and works its magic, I weight it down just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I can already hardly wait to see what those look like with a little bit of finish on them. If you veneer one side of a board, you're adding a stress, a moisture source, and a tension level that is not reflected on the other side of the board, and the board will warp. To counteract this, a backing veneer, or what's called a balance veneer, is added to the backside. This I just used ash. Nobody's ever going to see this, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like. So we'll skip right on to repeating the process in a beautiful fiddleback sycamore for the interior of the case. As a Sawyer and technically an actual Sawyer, I feel I'm uniquely qualified to recommend this week's sponsor, Hipa. Whether you're taming your home garden or tackling heavy-duty lumber work, Hipa has the parts that won't let you down. From pole saws to pro saws, Hipa has the quality chainsaw chains made from German stainless with blued cutters that don't just add a sleek finish look, they actively fight corrosion. They've got low kickback semi-chisels for home use, all the way to full skip, full chisel professional chains. Now, hold on to your safety glasses because you can snag these chains for a fraction of retail, as low as $4.63 each on Hipa's official website, hipastore.com. They also have you covered with parts for the rest of your equipment like carburetors and spark plugs for your mower, trimmers, and saws. Make those cuts count. Visit hipastore.com using the link in the description to explore the incredible selection and grab those chains that'll take your cutting experience to a whole new level. Thanks Hipa for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the build. with the tops and bottoms of the tops and bottoms veneered and balanced respectively. We must let free the inner awesomeness of the drop and hone the shape into its final dripping form. I will be doing this by rough cutting out the shape first and following that with a quick strip with the router around the perimeter of the board. Using the magic of outer space, I'm able to hold down the rough outline of the shape and affix the template on top of that. One tip as you're designing or using templates in general is that even one this size was able to flex at the very tip. And I had to come through and give the tip some extra attention by hand. I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere. Let me hear your best down in the description below. Got a special prize for the 69th person to comment. And special prize is not a euphemism, unfortunately. Sorry about it. Once the shape is routed out, I come back through and take just a 1/16 out of the circumference, offset from the outside. What this is going to do is allow a space for the inside of the case veneer to sit, and also gives a reference shelf, the bottom of the case, to come and rest on. Look at all those pretty curves. With the case, top and bottom complete, I'll come back and address the edge treatment and joining the two halves of the case. But first, I want to go ahead and get the tracks on the interior of the case in both the underside of the top and the top side of the bottom grooved out in preparation for everyone's favorite tambour doors. Because I designed this with tambour doors in mind, the tambours move, so they can't technically support the top. And some additional interior structure is required to support the top because gravity, and also because physics. To do this, there will be two structures inside, including a post at the tip and sort of a false interior at the back. The post at the tip is triangular in shape, 20 degrees, wouldn't you know? Giving me the perfect opportunity to demonstrate how they use the bandsaw in the hood. Creating an integral tenon at the end of this odd angle poses quite a challenge with most of the tooling in my shop, making this an awesome use case for the shaper origin for both the mortise and the tenon. With the post now supporting the tip of the top, I can now move on to laminating the false interior that'll sit at the back of the case. It's veneered with the same fiddleback sycamore, and because the edges were sort of yucky, I dadoed a small groove in a couple scrap pieces of white ash that make for a tidy termination for this support. Meanwhile, in the background, I have been veneering the interior of the case, which was done exactly the same as the exterior, so I will save you watching that process. And it's time to join the two halves of the case together. Since we're technically doing two tables, I did this two different ways. First was using these domino connectors, which seemed to work well, although the case could have been just a little bit thicker, as I ended up having to grind the set screws back to the case in order to allow enough clearance for the tambour to pass by. The second, with the walnut interior, I ended up just using dominoes as reference and tape as clamps. This seemed a little sleeker and equally as effective. And with the halves joined, while we're here, might as well take care of that curved compounding edge. This will be about 20 seconds of footage and about 3 weeks of lost sleep because I just could not decide what to do. Adding that compounding curve on a curved surface really threw me for a loop. I initially wanted to work the hardwood edge into the substrate, but getting worked into the 2D curve of that edge was just too difficult to justify. A straight edge banding would have been easy, but it would have looked hella ghetto. And I really want to break the edge with metal, but introducing a 2D curve into metal causes the to twist, and I just don't have the tooling to deal with that. I ended up just bringing the grain over in a waterfall, and it's not perfect grain match all the way across, but it looks pretty good. I'm pleased with how it came out, and I still do not think I would do it any differently. The satisfying little slices that I am currently working on are not part of the most annoying cutting board ever, but actually the edge banding that waterfalls over the edge for the top. This was tricky as the segments got wider. Technically, at the tip further away from the center, the distortion of the grain across the edge would have been elongated a little bit, but having cut out a curve, it was difficult to work this edge with the leftover material from the top, so I just decided to do my best in color matching the grain as it waterfalls over the edge. And again, not perfect, not possible on hardwood, and not sure I would do it any differently. The final component before we move on to the tambour doors that needs to be addressed is the free bent teardrop base. Watch the next one here if it's up. If not, you can roll right into the next episode at patreon.com/SawyerDesign, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.